Hey everyone, welcome back to Ellen Mack Surviving the Upside Down. This is episode 6, and tonight we're going to be talking about strength and just being strong. And we'll start off with Stranger Things. So the characters in Stranger Things survived the Upside Down, not just because of their abilities, but because of their inner strength and also like how they support one another. We'll start with 11. 11 uses courage and determination. Despite her fear, trauma, clearly isolation, as we saw, she repeatedly chooses to protect her friends and confront dangerous enemies, many different types, human, non-human. 11 experiences significant trauma also throughout Stranger Things.
Yeah, I think I remember, and I always laugh when I think about it. She calls the humans that are bad mouth breathers, and it's just so funny.
That's
It's like,
right.
just ignore them. They're mouth breathers. As a young child, she was raised in a laboratory with Dr. Brenner. She was subjected to many experiments related to her psychic abilities. She was isolated from a normal childhood and often treated as a test subject. 11 was separated from her biological mom and grew up without a stable family. Throughout the series, she experiences loss of people she cares about and periods of separation from friends and loved ones. She was exposed to a lot of danger and violence, and from a young age, she faced life-threatening situations, encountered monsters like the Demogorgons and Vecna from the Upside Down, and repeatedly carried the burden of feeling like she had to protect those around her. When she was trying to live a normal life, she faced a lot of bullying and social isolation. She struggled to fit in and experienced rejection and feelings of not belonging. She had identity struggles. Much of her journey involved trying to understand who she is outside of the roles others have imposed on her, as a weapon, a test subject, or a hero.
So the show portrays these experiences as affecting her emotionally, including feelings of fear, loneliness, anger, grief, uncertainty. At the same time, a central part of her story is how she gradually builds trusting relationships and develops a stronger sense of identity and belonging, which I just, to add a little bit to that, I think a lot of people who've been through feelings of fear, loneliness, anger, grief, uncertainty, it's really hard to trust people. So the fact that she was able to build those relationships, she also learned how to use her inner strength to control her abilities, which made her powers more powerful and giving her confidence for herself and for the others in the Upside Down as well.
Sounds like a badass to me.
Absolutely.
As a child, I had to learn how to use my inner strength to fight to survive. Using those who cared about me to help strengthen my inner strength. Spending most of my childhood in and out of hospitals, clinical trials, invasive testing, and procedures. Learning to turn my fears and pain into strength and courage. As a 4-year-old, and to this day, I have been in survival mode, creating a shield of strength and protection to give me the power I need to survive and fight the ongoing battle my body has faced since I was a kid. Never feeling like I belonged, and I was bullied as a kid for having a shaved head and just looking different from the other kids. And even though I had adults around helping to take care of me, I always felt alone on my journey. I've always tried to turn bad things in my life that I struggle with every day into powers for good, like helping others by using what I've learned and my abilities now to face the upside down world that we live in.
Yes, Elle, you show incredible strength. And one of the many qualities that I love about you, one of many, is your ability to look for good and try to find the good in people and always wanting to help people. And even this podcast is, we're here to help people. So Thank you for that. Thank you for being you.
Aw, thanks, Max.
So, Max Mayfield demonstrates resilience in the face of grief and emotional pain. Her determination to keep fighting, even when struggling internally, becomes one of her greatest strengths. Her strength comes from a combination of resilience, independence, and her deep connection to the people that she loves. Throughout Stranger Things, she faces many difficult experiences. They show a little bit into her family and growing up in a troubled family environment, being exposed to domestic violence, living with controlling and abusive behavior from her stepbrother, Billy, coping with grief and guilt after Billy's death, and also feeling isolated and struggling with depression. And we see that a lot, especially in season 4.
What makes Max so strong is not that she avoids pain or fear. She experiences both very intensely. Her strength comes from continuing to engage with life even when she is hurting. She is willing to be vulnerable with trusted friends, faces danger head on, and keeps fighting when giving up might seem easier. One of the most powerful examples of her inner strength is her determination to hold on to her memories, friendships, and sense of self when confronted by overwhelming emotional darkness. I think we really see that when she gets sucked back into the Upside Down and is being held by Vecna and is showing her resilience during those times. Her friends support her, but she also makes her own choices to keep resisting. Max's story suggests that strength can come from perseverance. Why can't I talk today? The decision to keep moving forward despite grief, fear, and uncertainty. Rather than being fearless, she demonstrates courage by confronting what scares and hurts her the most. Sounds like you, Max.
Yes, I relate to Max in many different ways. I think, growing up in a troubled family environment, being exposed to domestic violence at a really young age, not just physical, but emotional and mental abuse. I've struggled with depression for as long as I can remember. I remember being a kid and feeling depressed and feeling isolated. And, there was a time where I went through a really strong loss and was going through grief at the time and was not in a really good place. And I really didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be on this planet. And I had to really dig deep within myself to find a purpose. My kids were a purpose, but I needed more than that, which led me to my career now, helping families and helping women and men that have been through domestic violence. A lot of that is my coping and my reason to be here, and I had to work through all of that to get to where I am now. And it's been a long road, but again, I feel like Max, I was very lucky that I did have support system. I had some help with friends that were there to, support me. But yeah, definitely can relate to Max.
Yeah, and honestly, these are qualities that have drawn me to you as a friend, and we've been friends for a very long time. I've always looked up to you and looked uh, to you when I felt that I was slipping or my strength was slipping. And I've always admired that no matter what you've gone through, how grounded, unwavering that you always seem to be on the outside, even though I know you're feeling it in the inside.
Thank you, Elle. And, that kind of brought up something else for me too. I think a lot of my perseverance too comes from wanting to help others in the fact of being inspiring. I like to share my story because I feel like my story gives other people hope that there is recovery, that there is a way to be healthy and happy, and that you just have to really work hard sometimes to find it. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, girl.
Did
We can't forget about Hopper, Jim. who gets most of his inner strength from love, responsibility, and perseverance because he's had a lot of loss in his life. Well, I'd say
Mhm.
a lot. He lost his daughter. Before the events of Stranger Things, Hopper experienced the devastating death of his young daughter, Sarah Hopper. That loss left him grieving. He became emotionally withdrawn and struggled with his sense of purpose. As we've seen throughout the series, several things become sources of strength for him. He feels a strong need to protect vulnerable people, especially children, and all of the kids from Stranger Things. His relationship with Eleven gives him a chance to be a father again, and he ends up taking her in, and she calls him Papa. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that bond that they had.
Yeah, me
Um,
too. Me too.
yeah, it's so, like, heartwarming to know that, like, what she came from, and I think it really helped her with her inner strength as well to feel that love.
I think it's what they both needed at that time. He needed to feel wanted and needed by, a child, and she needed someone to care about her.
Yeah, and it was perfect. And even though it took some time, him and Joyce finally, like, got back together or got together. I mean, I feel like they were together and then not together, so
But
I think that
I was just like the whole time, like, will you guys just like do it already?
yeah. I know. It was just kinda weird seeing them, like, fighting side by side and them not being together, and then finally they were, and it was awesome. Um, Hopper is often injured because he's just, like, in the battle 24/7, finds himself outnumbered in certain scenarios, facing impossible odds, but never quits. Once he believes something is worth fighting for, he goes all in. And as the chief of police and later as a leader in very dangerous situations, he ends up feeling a sense of responsibility for helping others, even when it puts him at risk.
Yeah, Hopper's strength develops along his weaknesses. So just to, we talk about his grief. I can't even imagine losing a child. Like to me, that's probably the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Like that's just not natural. Like we're not supposed to our children are not supposed to go before us. So the fact that he's able to just keep showing up for people that he cares about after going through something like that just shows, his strength and his resilience. And his resilience comes from continuing to act despite carrying those painful experiences. Loss can isolate a person or it can deepen their capacity to care. I think maybe both, right? I feel like to kind of, just bring in my own experiences, I definitely isolated, but I feel like I never like didn't care, right? I think I always cared, but it just maybe just made me act on that and kind of like I said get into the field that I'm in and try to find something that gave me some purpose. So I think you can act and carry those things at the same time. Over time his love for Eleven, Joyce, and the people of Hawkins becomes powerful and a source of inner strength for Hopper.
Yeah, and I definitely think it couldn't have come at a better time for him. And watching him as a person, well, character in the show, but the person part of Hopper change throughout the seasons because of the kids and Joyce and Eleven um, is really inspiring. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. A lot of us who suffer, such a hard loss like that find ways to help us come out of the dark side of it.
Absolutely. I think again I agree. I think a lot of people can relate to Hopper and even if it's not maybe loss of a child, but just that sense of wanting to fight and, trying to find purpose.
Yeah. Another character who we see goes through a lot, almost side by side like Eleven does, just later on in his life, is Will. Will, as we know, gets taken early on in the episodes. It was episode 1 that he goes missing. and finds himself in the upside down, and having to be the mom going through that, never never wanting to give up to finding her son, feeling like he's there, I just need to reach him, must have been very hard for both of them. And watching Will go through those transformations as well, realizing that even though he was being taken because of his weaknesses, that he can have control over becoming more strong and digging down for his inner strength so that he's not essentially a victim in the situation. Um, it's
Yeah, I think he
amazing.
needed to sorry, I think he needed to, like, build confidence. I feel like Joyce kinda helped him with that.
Yeah, and I think even having him being stuck in the upside down for so long and never giving up hope that he was gonna get rescued showed him what he's able to do and essentially that survive. And to me, that's awesome. Yeah, and again, like his mother Joyce, as we know, very persistent, always trusting her motherly instincts, even when people thought she was crazy. She never gave up and just continued to search for him. Mike Wheeler, I love Mike. Mike is amazing. Watching what he does for Elle is just so heartwarming. He draws strength from loyalty and compassion. He keeps believing in his friends and often takes emotional risks to help them. I mean, he never like wavered, oh, what could happen if I do this? He's like, no, we got to go get 11. No, we got to go get Will. We got to do this. Like, to me, he was born with that inner strength and that inner fight. And that,
Yeah, it was like
I
that
don't,
leadership quality, right? Like, he was born to be kinda lead and take control.
yeah. And he's like, even when his friends like, no, that's stupid, or no, we can't do that, when they question things, he was like, I'm going to do it whether you're going to do it with me or not. And that, to me, that's a quality that you are born with. But I also think that given who his siblings are, he was also raised that way by his mother. And we'll talk about her later. And then the other one I was going to mention is Dustin. It's so funny, like, when you think about Dustin, especially when he's little, like, those cute dimples in his cheeks and, like, just his presence is just so adorable. Um,
Yeah,
he's
he is
so
so cute.
smart. Like, he is, like, this smart, nerdy, fun-loving kid. Um, I think if it wasn't for Dustin's intelligence, they couldn't have done a lot of things that they did. Like, he was just like, oh, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna do, like, oh, wait, remember what we did in class? Or remember what this teacher said? Like, he was just, like, pulling it out. That's, like, another way of survival, I think.
Yeah, him and that
Being
science teacher, man, thank God that guy was always home.
I know, but, like, to have a kid, like, remember what the teacher taught him in class, like, to be so about that it helped them survive. To me, that's awesome, those resources that he was able to come up with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Max,
So,
what about Lucas?
I was just gonna say, so we had to talk about Lucas. I think I'm biased because he's my boyfriend, but Lucas Sinclair, he shows bravery and practicality as well. He helps the group stay focused during dangerous situations. And I think too, there's, a part in the show where he kind of battles a little bit with like where he fits in, right? He's like wants to be part of like the football team. I think it was football. Um,
Basketball.
oh, basketball. Sorry, I should know. He's my boyfriend. Um, and, he kind of struggled a little bit with where he fit in and where he wanted to be. But at the end of the day, he was able to recognize the people that really cared for him. So, another great character who we see a lot of growth with throughout the show and some strength and leadership that we talked about too is Steve Harrington. So he grows from this, self-focused teenager into his looks and the ladies, into a protective leader. Like he really protected the kids, and he repeatedly put himself in danger for the kids and for everyone. again, a major theme of Stranger Things is that inner strength. It doesn't mean being fearless, because I feel like the characters were often scared, hurt, or uncertain, but their strength comes through and continues to act despite those feelings. They rely on friendship, love, and hope to face all the dangers that they encounter in the Upside Down.
Yeah, and what a great bunch of kids. Even though sometimes they question like their own abilities or question situations, they always found a way to come together and unite using all of their different types of abilities. And all of them did really show a type of inner strength that is very hard to find nowadays. As much as having fearless moms like you and I, Max, our kids can't always find their way to have that type of strength to survive. When we talk about inner strength, it can come from many places. It can be something that you're born with, or it's built gradually throughout life. So if these kids didn't have inner strength going into the Upside Down, they damn well had it coming out of the Upside Down. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So like my first example of a source, to build inner strength is overcoming challenges like the Upside Down and fighting Demogorgons and Vecna. Um, Difficult situations can increase your confidence in your ability to handle what happens in the future. So even though it's hard to swallow a pill that you had to go through such a bad situation or such an obstacle, that's where you're going to learn how to be strong or how strong you are inside. A lot of times, a lot of times your values and beliefs can create a strong sense of what matters to you, and that can provide direction and resilience during hard times. For me, my belief system comes from Star Wars, and I always believe and say to myself, the force is within me. Mind over matter. How am I going to overcome this obstacle? Just focus on the obstacle and leave the fears and the dark part of it out of the equation. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to make it through. Relationships, like my best friend here, family members, or the family members that actually are, on your side or have been there for you. Sometimes mentors, a teacher, someone who you've had a long lasting relationship that you can look up to. Sometimes community can help. And sometimes it's just finding someone that can look at the situation the way you look at it, and then you're bonded by that, and having the bond will help you build the strength that you need. Understanding your strengths. What are your limitations? Emotions. I say take the emotions out of these situations and just conquer. Having a sense of purpose. I was just telling Max that this is our sense of purpose. I need to speak about the challenges that I face, what I have learned, and what I can share to help others. That's my purpose. And that helps me continue to build my strength inside. A lot of times we can sit here and tell you about all of our life experiences, but as individuals, everybody needs to find and acknowledge what their skills are and what coping skills will help them throughout life. I am not really religious, but sometimes faith can help people with their strength as well. And if that's the case for you, I encourage you to do that.
Yeah, I'm not religious, but I feel like I'm spiritual. Like myself, a coping mechanism for me is to be outside and to be by the water. It gives me a sense of peace, a sense of calm. So I feel like it doesn't always need to be religion, right? It can be just a spiritual belief, in nature and, the universe in itself. So inner strength isn't usually about the absence of fear, sadness, or struggle, like we've said. Often it shows up as the ability to keep going, adapt, or make thoughtful choices, even when you're experiencing those difficult emotions. Some people are born with traits that make inner strength easier to develop. Research suggests that temperament, which is the natural patterns of personality and emotional response present from early life, they can influence how resilient a person tends to be. So some examples are like some people are just more adaptable to change. They're less reactive to stress, maybe more optimistic, more persistent when they're facing obstacles. So some of these traits that you're born with, can help make it easier, I guess. That doesn't mean that if you don't have these traits, you weren't born with them, that you can't have your own inner strength. Inner strength can also be shaped by experiences, relationships, upbringing, culture. So culture could even be, your family life. It could be your culture too. Not necessarily, again, it doesn't have to be like religious or like ethnicity. And I feel like throughout our lives, you can build strength too. So maybe when you're younger, you may not handle things or deal with things, in a strength-based manner as much as you would when you're a little older. The challenges that we face throughout life, I feel like they make us stronger, but they also, as you go through experiences, you learn. If you do learn, I think, some people go through things and they don't learn. But I feel like if you go through challenges and you learn from them, you can use what you've learned to help you in other situations as they arise and as they come, and makes it a little bit easier, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I always felt that I was born with the inner strength because I don't know where a 4-year-old would learn it without experiencing something other than childhood cancer. Um, and I've just grown up never knowing uh any other word to describe how I get through life as inner strength. Um, to me, it doesn't make me better than anyone else. It's just something that I've acknowledged about myself. Um, some people who are exceptionally strong develop that through hardship. I mean, maybe my strength got stronger because of what I went through, or I was strong and that's how I was able to go through. I don't know. But someone who starts out naturally resilient can struggle if they lack support or face overwhelming circumstances. So if I didn't have all those adults around me, I don't know if I could have gotten through that. Um, Inner strength is influenced by both nature and nurture. Some people may begin with a stronger foundation, but everyone can develop greater resilience and inner strength over time. People who seem to lack inner strength can still learn these skills. They can learn coping skills, how to adapt and persevere. Inner strength is often built through experience, support, and practice rather than simply appearing all at once.
Absolutely. You can definitely, I agree with that. You can definitely build your inner strength. Some ways that someone could develop it, if you were, interested in developing your own inner strength, start with some small challenges. Successfully handling little things can really give you confidence and a sense of capability. I feel like I could speak to that. I think the experiences I always tell everyone, like, I've had a lot of, well, excuse my language, but I've had a lot of shit happen to me, shit that like doesn't happen to people. But all of those experiences and I was able to overcome them, gave me confidence to say, like Elle, you mentioned, you think a lot about Star Wars and like Star Wars mantra. For me, I think back like, all right, I've been through X, Y, and Z. I can get through this. This is nothing. So it's kind of helped give you that sense of confidence and capability.
Yeah, in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can teach yourself problem solving. Breaking problems into smaller steps can help when it's feeling really overwhelming and more manageable. And I think, difficult experiences, again, like I said, you learn from them and you learn what works for you, right? And what doesn't work. Encouraging supportive relationships. So as hard it can be sometimes, letting people come in and let people support you and encourage you. And that can also help you with, again, your confidence and your sense of capability, and strengthens your resilience. And again, helping to recognize past experiences. So a lot of times you've been through something that maybe was similar, but you just have to have a different perspective and see it in a different light and know that, you know what, I've already been through something like this. I can do this. Developing emotional skills. So identifying your feelings, tolerating discomfort, managing stress can also increase resilience. I kind of giggled a little bit when I said tolerate discomfort. I am actively in therapy, been in therapy for a while now. I've been diagnosed with OCD. And one of the, techniques for OCD is to be uncomfortable, that it's okay to be uncomfortable sometimes. And my therapist will tell me that, like, you need to learn to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable. So that's why I kind of giggled a little bit when I mentioned that piece, because it's definitely really hard, but it can help you increase resilience. And again, like we've mentioned a few times, like having a sense of purpose. And, I think Elle and I, we've talked about like this podcast and other like maybe big things that we've done to feel a sense of purpose, but it doesn't always have to be big. It can be something small, just a goal that you have or responsibility that maybe you take on that makes you feel good, or having people that you care about that can provide motivation during difficult times can be helpful too, because they remind you that why you're here and that you can get through those times. So another example would be just to model resilience. So I think seeing others face setbacks and continuing to move forward can be a powerful example, which I kind of talked about earlier, that gives, like, I guess in a sense that gives me some purpose, right? Being able to get through all these hard times and, being inspiring to others gives me purpose. And it kind of makes me feel like I'm held accountable too. So like, I feel almost kind of, and I'm not going to say this in like a bad way, but I kind of feel like if I'm not strong, then I'm going to disappoint people. And I don't mean it negatively. That gives me motivation to want to continue to move forward and not only for other people, but for myself too, to be able to say that, you know what, I did it. I made it. I did this. And I got through this really, really hard time.
Right.
She's
In real life, survival can really depend on some special trait that a person either has or doesn't have. People often discover strengths they didn't know they possessed when they face adversity, especially when they have support, practical skills, and reasons to keep going. My philosophy is this: it's all mind over matter. And facing serious and difficult things, dig deep and find the strength.
That reminds me of that. I don't know if it's a quote or a saying, I guess. I guess it would be like a quote, is that you don't realize how strong you are until you have no choice to be.
Yes. Yes,
So
I
it kind of goes along with
definitely.
that. So surviving and thriving in today's world involves a mix of practical skills, emotional resilience, healthy relationships. We'll definitely have to have a whole podcast about healthy relationships and what that is, what that looks like, not just with oh my God, romantic relationships, but all relationships in general. But challenges may be different from those faced by different generations. Many of the fundamentals are the same. So even though like the world is insane right now and crazy and there's so much going on, basic fundamentals that you can do that can help you survive and thrive right now. So a couple things. So we've talked a little bit about like self-care, but like just taking care of your basic needs. So sleep, getting enough sleep, which I know can be a struggle for so many, but trying to get enough sleep, eating right, getting exercise. We've talked a lot about like getting medical care, but just your regular checkups are so important, especially as you get older. You can build habits that support your physical health and help you manage stress. So again, like we talked a little bit about exercise. I know for me, the gym and like going outside and walking has been a really big help and coping mechanism with stress, but also helps me take care of my physical health too. Also, learning to adapt. And again, like that can be really hard for some people. Change is constant, and some people really struggle with change, but just learning the best you can to adapt, be open to learning new skills and being flexible when needed. And that can help you a little bit when you have some uncertainty. Focusing on what you can control rather than what you can't. I actually have a little sticker on my computer, and it has like a little circle, and there's a circle in the middle about like what you can control and the things on the outside that you can't control. And that's so important because there's so many things that we can't control. And
Yes.
again, sorry, go ahead.
No, yes, that's so true. You have to accept the things that you can't control, and that's just how it's gonna be.
And I heard that sticks with me is, and this is something I say a lot, like we talked about mantras, is that you cannot be responsible for other people's actions. Like you can't control other people's actions. And that was something that was like so big, I felt like for me.
Definitely.
And then also just building strong connections. So we talked about like having friends, family, neighbors, even like community groups. It doesn't always necessarily have to be like, a friend or a family, but just being part of a group can help. Or we talked about like a sense of purpose, even like volunteering somewhere and just being around like community can give you a sense of belonging. People tend to be more resilient when they don't face challenges alone and they have someone there with them.
Yes, for sure. Another suggestion that we have here is managing your information wisely. Try to stay informed. I know there's a lot of fake news out there. Avoid becoming overwhelmed by social media and the news. Honestly, I don't even watch the news anymore. It's too much. This world is upside down. And if I were to swallow everything that I hear and see on the news, I wouldn't be able to handle it. And social media, it's almost like a joke now. I think that's why it's so important that we have episodes like this where we can actually talk about what's real. Choose reliable sources and give yourself breaks from the information overload. Find places that aren't just gonna give you all the darkness in the world. Find places that will also give you hope and offer you things like our podcast, to give you things that you can do. I love to craft. I love making things. I like working on projects. I like creating a podcast. So things like that. Come up with practical skills in life. I mean, sometimes we're not always blessed with parents that pass down things that we need to know, like how to cook, how to budget money, good communication, problem solving, how to work on things in our house when stuff breaks. Having independence, or once you have that feeling of independence and confidence, it can change everything for you. It will give you a sense of strength because you no longer fear the things that you cannot do. Um, Same, finding a purpose. It doesn't have to be big, but having a purpose in some way can give you that fulfilling feeling that you do need to rise above the darkness. Accepting, that things are bad, or when someone passes away, or you worked really hard at a job and you got laid off and things like that is a part of life. And I think the sooner that we encourage people to do that, the easier it will be for them to move past it and not let it break them. Having to go through recovery after a loss, or a job that you lost, or a marathon that you didn't finish, or whatever it is a sign of strength. It's a way to build yourself up. and keeping perspective, because not everything looks the way we thought it would look. So changing the way you look at something will give you a different perspective and will kind of erase some of those feelings that you get, those letdown feelings you get when it doesn't hold up to your expectation. Um, yeah, so just change perspective.
Thank you, Elle. I think those are all great things. And again, like, I don't think anyone has to do all of them. Or, again, we talked about like baby steps. Many people think survival requires being fearless or exceptionally strong. In reality, it often comes down to just taking the next step, asking for help when needed, continuing forward even when things are difficult. Small actions over time build lasting resilience. Again, like we said, you can be born with certain traits that might make it easier for you, or maybe you weren't, but everyone has that inner strength inside them that they can dig deep down and find. I feel like a lot of the things we talked about tonight are great things, even not for inner strength, but just for your own like healthy mental health, right? We talk a lot about like physical health, but like your mental health is so important as well. And taking care of yourself, even, those physical pieces, eating good, exercising, sleep. It sounds so like cliche because people say it all the time, but it really does work. And finding coping mechanisms that work for you and talking to people and always being open and trying to find new coping skills that, can that you can try that might help you in a difficult situation, and fostering those relationships. And again, like, I have a really small circle. I have a very few people that I'm really close with, that I have trusting relationships with. You don't have to have, a million friends. You just need to have a couple people in your life that support you and, are cheering you on and helping you build that resilience and inner strength, and helping you develop your emotional skills too, and helping you identify how you're feeling and giving you a different perspective. We talked about like keeping perspective. Sometimes it's really good to get a perspective from an outsider too, who's not dealing with it. Sometimes they can help you break it down, or at least help yourself and your brain to be able to break it down into smaller, more manageable steps. So, another thing that I tell myself a lot is that the way I'm feeling right now or what I'm going through right now is just temporary. Like Elle said, things are going to happen, but it's just temporary. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. You'll get through it. You might not feel like that at the time, but you will, and you have to just keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I think those are excellent points and excellent perspective for someone who is looking at the world and feels overwhelmed. I'm often asked, I don't know how you do it. People always say, I couldn't handle what you're dealing with. And for me, it's all I've ever known. So if I could sit here and teach others how to do what I'm doing, what I would tell them is, you have to take one day at a time. If you take everything that's going on in your life and you try to process it at the same time, it's not going to happen. And you're not going to build strength. You're going to dig deeper into the darkness. And I refuse to do that. When I am faced with something that I feel like is too dark for me, I always say to myself, it's mind over matter. If I allow my energy, my sacred energy, to be wasted on negative emotions about the situation, then I'm losing a sense of power that I have inside. I'm losing my ability to face that situation. So if you just think about it and you say, you know what? I have to do this. There's nothing else. There's no other choices right now. So I'm just going to face it and I'm going to get it done and then move past it when it's over. When things are too overwhelming, I allow myself 5 minutes, and it's 5 minutes to yell, scream, cry, vent to a friend that's listening. And then I say, okay, let's change the channel because it's done. It's over. I don't want to be traumatized by every negative, dark, horrible thing that happens to me. To me, that is not a feeling. That is not a trait I could ever live with myself having. I don't want to feel weak. I don't want to be weak. I don't want to be superwoman, but I want to be able to survive. And these are the ways that I survive. I kind of feel like I am a Jedi in a lot of ways because I use the mind over matter mantra so much. Um, I remember being in a 5-hour-a-week surgery because it was too risky to put me under. And I spent the entire time with the person at the head of the operating table talking about Star Wars. And I just keep thinking about, how did Luke do this? And how did Leia do that? And Yoda. And, Yoda is he's a very small, meek character, someone who you would never think could kick somebody's ass or survive a horrible storm. And then he does. And he does because he uses that deep mind meditation type of way. And he speaks in a matter of fact way, which to me, that's better than a priest at an altar. To me, it's so more like a common sense thing because to me, God has given me this pain. So how would I expect God to take it away? For me, I have to find it within myself to get through it. To me, I have to constantly, grab that inner strength and put my armor on and seize the day. And that's the only way I can live my life. That's the only way I can get through it. And to quote Yoda, fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. So train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose.
Thank you so much, Elle. That was great. And I myself don't know a lot about Star Wars, so I'm always interested to hear like your perspectives and everything like that. So I appreciate you sharing a little bit about that and how it helps keep you going. That's very inspiring, I feel like, to me and other people, that it doesn't need to be something big. It can just be, Star Wars. And that's enough, right? You don't have to seek into the, into the universe to try to find this big thing that's going to help you. It could be just something small like that. So
Well,
thank you so much.
Max, when you think about what happens when you lose somebody, right? And you think about how much pain that puts inside of you, or if you watch someone die, like you have all these fears that you're not going to have enough time with them or whatever the fears are. You're using that energy, the so little energy that most of us have after finishing the day of hard work and taking care of kids and dealing with other crap. Like, to me, that energy is sacred. That energy is yours. What good is it to waste that energy on allowing yourself to sink? To me, that's waste. That's a waste of energy. I would rather preserve that energy for good things, for doing things that make me happy, for doing things that help others. The emotional part, being sucked into the dark, being sucked into fear, it's not worth it. So it's more practical to live with that mindset. Yeah, you can cry, but just give yourself 5 minutes because you're wasting your energy on something that you can just face and then it's done. Or face and accept, I should say.
Yeah, I love that you said that because, well, I'll end with that. But I think something that you just kind of came up for me that I should have mentioned earlier is allowing yourself, just like you said, a few minutes. And maybe not to cry, but with whatever feeling that you have, right? So whether that be fear or anger or sadness or whatever, give yourself the time that you need to feel it. Feel it, put a time frame on it, 5, 10 minutes. I'm gonna allow myself to feel this, and then move on to the next step. We talked about taking steps. So move on to the next step. Put a time frame
Yep.
on it so you're not, like you said, getting buried into it.
Exactly, because you and I both know what trauma can do to people. It's a lot easier to prevent yourself to be traumatized than it is to be traumatized and heal from that.
Absolutely. And I think part of healing is allowing yourself to feel even when it's something that's not a positive feeling, like fear or anger.
Yeah, take that time to heal, but make sure you tell yourself, okay, it's over now. We don't have to use our energy anymore to, appease the hardship, to appease the negative side of it. I can still hold that person in my heart that I love. I can still cry when I hear a song that they sung or see a picture on my phone or something like that. But I don't have to let those feelings sink me or put me in a place where I don't want to be in a dark place. I don't want any of this to bring me to the dark place. We may live in the upside down, but it doesn't mean I have to be upside down.
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for coming and listening. We hope that you got some inspiration from what we talked about today. And I think let's give you some homework. Okay. So why doesn't everyone, after they listen to this podcast, go and do something for yourself? It can be something small. It can be something big, whatever you want it to be. And if you are listening to this on either YouTube or Facebook and you'd be willing to leave a comment, we would love for you to comment on maybe one thing that you took away from the podcast today, or maybe something that you're going to try over, some of the things that we talked about. So we would love to have some interaction feedback. So please, if you'd be willing to share, comment on either Facebook or YouTube, and we will see you guys, or I guess you guys will hear us next time.